So, Ray, you've been seeing gigs at the Academy venues since the 1970s. Is there a particularly potent one that sticks out in your memory?
Well, I suppose there's two ways of looking at that one. One is the first one, and that was in 1976, if I remember correctly, and it was Gil Scott Heron. Now, that one stands out very vividly because I was young. I was relatively new to gigs. I've been to a few gigs at that point, but I'd never been to one at that venue, and I don't recall ever having been to one at a venue that size, because it was the main debating hall, the Academy 2 as it now is called. So that was special, and one of the things that I remember with greatest vividness about that is that the friend I went with, a guy called Les, who was of Jamaican origin, as indeed Scott Heron was. As we were waiting to go into the venue, Gil Scott Heron walked past us, and because Les was the only conspicuously non-white person there, Scott Heron noticed him and said, "All right, brother." I've always remembered that. It was a tour with Brian Jackson. It was the band that played on from South Carolina to Johannesburg. Mazzy Star, for example, in the Academy 3, is probably, of all the gigs that I've been to there, the most transcendently pleasurable and surprisingly pleasurable gig that I've attended at any of the Academy venues. I went not believing it possible that they could create the kind of narcotic, woozy sound that the album had, the two albums that had been out at that point had. I just couldn't see how they could do that, how they could capture that, and they did amazingly, consistently, continuously. I was spellbound that they were able to do that in front of an audience with all of the variables that can go wrong and completely spoil what they do, what their appeal is to the people who like what they do. And they did it marvellously. I remember seeing Loop in 1988 in the Academy 2, having taken a clear window pane, which is an extremely powerful form of acid. It was only the second time I'd taken LSD, and that was staggering, absolutely staggering. But that was staggering for entirely pharmaceutical reasons, really. But the whole experience was an incredibly vivid one for me, because it's probably the only LSD experience that had music that was entirely suitable to the state of mind I'd induced in myself, and that also had powerful visuals, because I remember coming out afterwards with the friend I'd gone with and seeing all sorts of pulsing patterns on the pavement, and then we went back to my flat and watched a double bill of Carl Dreyer's Vampire and Eraserhead, and it was, oh wow, but it's boring drug talk.